The answer. He's going to give it to you right after the break. He said, don't worry, threat's over, all because of me. Now we're learning a military intelligence agency believes Kim Jong-un has no intention of fully. Let's get after it with former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Governor Bill Richardson. Gov, good to see you.
Thank you, Chris.
So I hear two things. Help me discern what is actually true. The first one is that what we hear from Bolton and from Pompeo and others who are doing the hard work of the diplomacy here, we hope, which is we know who they are. We know what they're about. We know this isn't going to be easy. The other side we hear is the Trump hyperbole, which is it's all done. I took care of it. We're great. What is the reality in your eyes?
Well, the reality, in my view, is that I'm increasingly worried. There's no question the summit, I agreed with the president he should meet Kim Jong-un. It was a risk well taken. But at the same time, I was concerned that we made the first move. The North Koreans always want you to make the first move. And that was to stop some of the military exercises with the South. Now, 3 weeks after the summit, North Korea hasn't done anything. In fact, you can see an increase in production in their nuclear fuel. They haven't disclosed how many nuclear weapons, missiles, biological weapons they have, 20 to 60. They've made no moves whatsoever. In fact, they've also said they were going to return the remains of some of our servicemen, 200. That hasn't happened yet. So I'm getting a little worried that this is typical North Korean, Chris. I've negotiated with them. They bob and weave, they delay, they say, oh, I didn't mean that.
But they were supposedly so worried about the sanctions and about Trump and the strong talk that they came to the table. How do you see it?
Well, I do think that they came to the table because of the sanctions. China was very active in pushing these sanctions. But now it seems that with all these summits between the Chinese and the North Koreans, the Chinese are lessening the sanctions. They're giving a little space to the North Koreans. And I think it doesn't help that we're in a trade war, a tariff war with the Chinese. I mean, we want the Chinese on our side. So I don't understand the logic sometimes of the president's moves. Look, there is less tension on the peninsula. At least we're talking diplomacy. There are no missile tests. There are no nuclear tests. But the reality is that an agreement was signed by the United States and North Korea, full denuclearization, and the North Koreans have not made a move. Now, the good news is that the Secretary of State is heading to North Korea. The 2 trips that the Secretary of State has taken before have produced some results. One was not to cancel the summit. The second was to prepare for the summit. Now, this time, he's got to get, one, a full accounting of all the nuclear and missile materials the North Koreans have, and then a schedule for denuclearization. But I think National Security Advisor Bolton is going a little too far, saying that the North Koreans are going to do it in 1 year. That's not going to happen.
What do you think
at the same time, Bolton is...
What do you think the chance of success here is? And success, I think, has to be defined as they don't have nuclear capabilities anymore. I think you have to use the Iran agreement model. What's the chance?
Well, there is no chance of that. But there is a chance of a positive outcome if you move towards North Korea freezing their production, finding ways to halt any nuclear and any biological activity, stopping them from aiming their conventional weapons at South Korea, the missiles not coming to Guam and continental United States. It does make sense to keep pushing. But full denuclearization, I mean, that's the way that North Korea is going to survive. They're going to survive with some nuclear weapons. Otherwise, they have no leverage. But at the same time, I do think it makes sense to continue pushing very hard. But, I know these guys. They're moving. They're bobbing and weaving. They're delaying. They're saying, well, no, we didn't mean that. And then they made us do the first move. I think that was a mistake, to stop some of those military exercises with South Korea.
Well,
but we'll see. Pompeo, I'm going to give him credit for fixing things before. Hopefully he can do it now.
Well, we'll see, because the administration said, well, we'll just put the exercises right back. We can undo it. We can do it, you know, with a whim. So we'll see if that's what happens and then where that leads. But Bill Richardson, appreciate the perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this next story, I don't know if you heard about this, but you're going to now, and you're going to be grateful you did. What a story of survival. A dozen kids and their coach found alive after being trapped in a cave for 9, really 10 days. But they've been found. You see them, but they can't get them out. What is the deal? Next. Soccer coach, all found alive in a cave in Thailand after being gone for almost 10 days. Dramatic video shows the moment rescuers located the team who disappeared after hiking. Take a look at this.
How many of you? 13. Brilliant.
Brilliant indeed. Now, rescue workers are trying to get a 4-month food supply for the kids. 4 months, why? Because they're not sure how to get them out. And they want to teach the group how to dive so they can make it out of the cave. Let's bring in someone who knows everything about survival skills, former CIA operative Robert Baer. Bob, it's good to have you for this.
Thanks.
Now, I want to be happy because we thought they were gone, and they're not. They're alive. But 4-month food supply, learning how to dive, what is the predicament that although we can see these kids, we can't get them?
Well, they can't put diving suits on them and take them out this way because the chances they'd panic, there would probably be some casualties. You couldn't assure it. There's probably a problem getting a decompression chamber into that cave. That water is very treacherous. And by the way, those divers that went in, it's amazing how dangerous that is. And the fact that they found them, they were 400 feet away where they're supposed to be. So they're gonna, if they have to teach them to dive, it could take 4 months. And the food and medicine and hypothermia, you know, there's the possibility, could you pump out the water from that cave? Apparently not.
So they really are not out of the woods here. When we say teach them to dive, what happened? They were in this cave, it's monsoon season, and there was like a collapse and a flood. So what do they have to do to get out? Like, how far would they have to swim, and in what kind of conditions?
Well, it's a question of teaching them how to dive, how to go down and come up, which I don't dive myself, but you know, it takes weeks and weeks to be a proficient diver, and especially in water where you can't see. They're going to have to go deep. I don't think it's going to take 4 months, but if they're planning for that, it's a pretty serious situation.
What happens if that's plan A and it doesn't work?
You know, I think, Chris, it's going to work. I think we should be optimistic. It's like bringing people out of a sunken submarine. The U.S. Navy has done this for years. They're very good at it. They're going to be bringing in experts, like I said, decompression chambers, dive suits, and the rest of it. And they're going to have to know their way into that cave before they're prepared to do it. But I think at the end of the day, this is going to be a happy story.
Oh, God willing. But I have to tell you something. What a harrowing thing. And you're right. It's going to be the most important thing is going to be able to get these kids, you know, young kids, and their coach to figure out how to stay calm, get prepared, and really take on the challenge of their lives. They're the kids before they went in. You know, one of the Rangers there saw their bikes still chained up after the rain started to come and realized that these kids were missing. So they found them. That's the good news. But how to get them out is going to be a continuing adventure. Brother Baer, thank you for the perspective. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Thanks.
All right. Now, coming up, we have a story that's not getting a lot of attention, but it needs to get it. It was a racist, anti-Semitic, bigoted cartoon posted on the Twitter account of a former Republican presidential candidate. Just let that sink in for a second. So why don't we just ignore it? Because what you ignore, you empower. We have a closing argument next.